Awesome. I'm super excited. Super excited. Welcome to the Valuable Mind podcast. My name is Brandon Poni. We are going to have a great conversation today with Chris McShanag from Virtual Teammate. And so cool to see he's got over 24 years plus of experience. He knows people, he knows processes, he knows systems. He's got quite a bit of things to share, but some big insights, some big experience that we're excited to hear about. So I'm excited to have you on.
Thank you, Brandon. That's a pleasure and really excited for the conversation and to see what we could do to share some to your listeners.
Absolutely. Yeah. There are a lot of business owners, people that haven't started their business that want to. You've been there. You've seen quite a few things. You've survived 2008. You've survived COVID. Like you've made it. You've made it. So it's gonna be very interesting. So yeah, tell us, tell us your background, a little bit about, where you're coming from and kind of how you got to where you are now.
Certainly. Thank you, Brandon. Yeah, I mean, I think interesting story. I think we chatted a little bit before coming online here. I have an interesting story. I originally from Australia. I came over here as an expat back in the 90s. I told my mum I'd be gone for 3 years, and now we're, like I said, 25, 26 years into it and married, 4 kids and two and a half grandkids, and a new one arriving in October. And for me, I've always been really passionate about adding value. And when I got to the US, I recognized very quickly just the value that could be added in a larger economy. And initially, I started in the asset intensive industry, loved doing work in the mining utility space, and was able to be part of an organization that we went through an IPO and then ultimately sold. And then I transitioned into consulting and have been able to grow a couple of consulting businesses in the asset intensive and then in the healthcare space. Yeah, very quickly, I recognized in the consulting, we were doing a great job of implementing processes and technology, but the people part was, always continue to be a struggle, finding highly qualified folks. And I got involved with Ronald McDonald House Charities, lovely organization, would highly recommend people to look them up. And it got me thinking about the healthcare space. And so from that, I grew a healthcare consulting company that then rolled up to and then sold to a public company. And really recognized very quickly that there were huge opportunities. Doctors and others were burning out because they couldn't find highly qualified staff.
Hmm.
And through that, I got involved with working and growing a business to a little over 2,000 virtual assistants supporting north of 600 healthcare clients, and really enjoyed doing that work. And what I recognized in the healthcare space was there was so much of a need, but there were so many other businesses that needed back-end support, administrative support. And so for me, I formed Virtual Teammate, and we've been doing amazing work for our clients. We're on average, saving cost savings in the staffing side around 67%, but more importantly, really adding value from a productivity perspective around 47%. So more productive on less cost, which has driven amazing growth and revenue for our clients, and really enjoying on enhancing that experience of leveraging remote team members at the same time enhancing the experience of our virtual teammates that work for us in the Philippines and Latin America.
So cool. So cool.
Yeah,
And it helps because you're not just offering a service. Like you've been a business owner for,
correct.
for years, and you know what it's like to manage teams and to get bogged down with things that aren't necessarily your skill set or your job or your role,
Correct.
and bumping heads, and and that causes friction inside an organization. And so that's really cool. You guys have really figured out ways in multiple industries to really like eliminate the friction.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's always stepping back and saying, what's the highest and best value use of my time as a CEO? And I believe, CEO's job is to respectfully and consciously add the value of the business, add value to the business. And at the same time, I think it's the employee's responsibility to continually add value to their role and to the business. And so I'm a big proponent of really clarifying what are the outcome-based responsibilities for your team members, whether they be like it referred to as here, near, and far. Here, physically in your office, near working regionally, and far being leveraging teams like mine in Latin America and the Philippines. Because in the last 10 years, we've seen such a huge transition. 10 years ago, 5% of the workforce was remote. Now it's well north of 50%. Of course, we had a bump through COVID, but it's really been higher and growing. So how do you drive employee engagement, but also how do you get productivity? And we've been able to kind of work through that. And it's for us and for our clients, it's been a really a huge benefit.
Amazing. Amazing. Yeah, so speak a little more to that. So on the trends, that's the trends that you've really been seeing. What else can you say more about that?
So, I mean, I think, 10 years ago, it was really a focus for small to medium-sized businesses to do everything in-house. And the larger organizations, the Fortune 100s, Fortune, 50s, leverage out what they refer to as outsourcing. Well, now that's becoming this global economy and ability to really leverage teammates, across the globe and have access to a global talent pool. And really what I'm focused on is taking that global talent pool and connecting with really amazing companies here in the US and in Canada and Australia to really, superpower their business. Focusing on areas like sales, marketing, financial, bookkeeping, customer service, and administrative support, executive assistant support. So really allowing our clients to buy back their time and focus on the best work for them from a strategy that really drives the business forward. And now in the healthcare space, it's really about supporting our doctors and healthcare providers with billing, insurance verification, medical scribing, receptionist patient communication, which is really key, thereby buying back their time, allowing them to focus on the highest and best value use of their time, which is patient care and delivery.
Definitely. Definitely. And I've reviewed your website. I've seen you have case studies and years of history and track records. But what are some? Obviously, this all didn't come without challenges and
Right.
trying to figure things out and a lot of bootstrapping and all that. So currently right now, like what are some things you're working on? Like what are some challenges you're kind of seeing right now?
The challenges I'm seeing is really in the marketing from a lead generation perspective. I think we're going through a transition right now where it's somewhat hard to believe what you read. And for me, I'm really focused on how do you build a trusted referral network, one that is truly believable, one that is trusted. And what I mean by that is, we see so much ads, and I think we all get so many emails. We get so much, bombarded with information. But how do you ensure that it's accurate and trusted, and not some AI bot and things like that? As people obviously leveraging ChatGPT and other areas to really drive their business. So for me, it's about building connection. And when I talk about value creation and building connection, it's not just material value creation, which is really important to add money and you'll be able to pay for things. But I also see probably the biggest opportunity and the biggest superpower is emotional value creation, which is about how do you drive connectiveness in a world that is so connected but disconnected at the same time, and ensuring an aligned culture. And so for me and the team at Virtual Teammate, we're really focused on enhancing that client experience of leveraging remote team members, and at the same time, enhancing the experience of remote team members to work for our clients, because that's just as critically important. And then the third bucket is really what I refer to as spiritual value creation. And what that is about driving connectiveness and also, doing something for a greater power. And so for me, it's really about how do I ensure that I can make a difference for small to medium business owners across the US and healthcare providers, as well as people in the Philippines and Latin America, to provide a living wage for their family. And so really making that connection is key for me. And I really coined this value creation term from a gentleman, Lee Benson, who has a methodology called MIND, which stands for most important number and decision. And for me, it's really a passion of mine and his to see what we could do to continually add value to the world.
Absolutely. Love that. It's big. Yeah, but at the end of the day, why are we doing all of this? Exactly.
Correct. Yeah.
So great. And now, what would you say? Where do you kind of see, the business here in the next year?
Well, I mean, I think, my prior business over 22 months, we kind of grew that from, 50 or 60 folks up to well over 2,000, supporting north of 600 clients. And so I see a huge growth in the industry and a huge opportunity. Because, as we get to a point to be more, how can we be more efficient? We all have 24 hours in a day and we're continually trying to get more done. And so for me, I see a huge opportunity to really start to think about and evaluate what's the best work you can be doing and what you could be delegating to others. And as we talked about before, it's about how do you buy back your time and how do you ensure that the best use of your time is being done to drive your business forward. I have a great story that I tell folks about. I have a client in the healthcare space. And he was always, he had a lady who would drive from doctor's office to doctor's office and do kind of network marketing. And she could do 2 to 3 a day because of traffic in LA. When we switched him to kind of a virtual team members, he was able to get, 10, 15 of those done a day. And then the question is, well, how do you make that connection? Because quite often she would bring lunch and she would do those sort of things. Well, we connected that with DoorDash. And so now this person could DoorDash food there, be able to do the meeting virtually. And it really grew his business probably about 4x because of the network marketing he was able to do, leveraging remote team members. So it's about really thinking outside the box. And I see a lot of business owners starting to connect the dots on how they can do things differently in a virtual world, right? Because we've transitioned, like I said, well over 50%. So how do you engage folks, but also how do you drive business and stay connected even in a virtual sense?
Amazing. Amazing. That's awesome. What a success story too. It's just things it's that perspective, that's the coaching that you were talking about. It seems so simple, but without having a coach or a mentorship or some kind of, help to be able to make that connection, his business wouldn't have thrived in that way.
Well, yeah, it's really about kind of thinking outside the box, right? And thinking about how much of this work requires to be in person. Healthcare took a little longer to kind of come around on that because from the patient perspective, now it's definitely going a lot further and there's a lot more understanding. But I think also, as business owners, we've got to really step back and say, how much of the work are we doing that would be more appropriate for others to be performing? Because I think I
Mm,
talked about prior to getting on, like I have a client who's the CEO and he's in the transportation and construction business. And one of the jobs he has is moving trucks from site to site. Well, that's not the highest and best fair use of a CEO's time. So how do you really step back and evaluate those things? And then some of these tasks, you're like, I really enjoy doing that. That's great. But is that the highest and best fair use that's going to drive the business? If truly, as the CEO, your job is to responsibly increase the value of your organization over time. So,
exactly right.
yeah.
One of my last main questions, and then, I want you to obviously share what you'd like, is so there's obviously always somebody to hire. There's always somebody to recruit. There's always somebody looking for a job or looking for a position. You've hired and you've found the right people. You've made multiple connections, or you know how to make these connections. What's some of the framework on finding the right people, on hiring the right people?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great point. It's not hard to find people, right? I think there's a lot of folks out there. What I've really have embraced is instead of looking at job descriptions and things like that, more focused on what I like to refer to as outcome-based responsibilities. And so for me, when I look at a role or hiring for somebody, it's not the job description, it's what are the outcomes we want to drive? So let's say, for example, you're hiring a marketing person. Well, the outcomes are I want to drive not just leads, I want to drive leads that convert to clients. And so being very clear and saying, these are the outcomes this role is going to drive. And then based on those outcomes, if you align with those, it's like, hey, what are the capabilities I want? I want a strong person in marketing that can not only drive leads, but high quality leads and can kind of pre-qualify them. Okay, they're the capabilities. Then what are the activities? The activities are the type of work, the content creation, things from marketing. Okay, great. Then what are the KPIs that align to those? Making sure that everything kind of aligns back to the outcomes. It says, these are the outcomes we want to drive. Therefore, this is the capability I'm looking from this person. These are the activities they'll perform, and then these are the KPIs. What that does is allow you to really evaluate the candidates, but also evaluate them once they become part of your organization. That's what we leverage at Virtual Teammate. Then we can determine, are we being successful? And at any point in time, if it drops below the bar that we've set, then we know that there's opportunity for coaching and there's opportunity for improvement. That's kind of on that once you have them, bringing people into the organization, a very structured approach, both from not just a technical, but also from a personality evaluation, from an IQ, and then from a speech and comprehension, purely because we leverage teams outside of the US. Even though the Philippines is the third largest English speaking country in the world, I really want to make sure that we're very clear on communication because in today's society with so much is done online via computers, but there's still that need for human connection and collaboration. And so I really put a huge price tag on that as well.
Couldn't agree more. Exactly. That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've got such a amazing global talent. We used to think that it had, now it's globally, how can I get the best developer? Maybe those people live in the Ukraine, right? What about the best nurse? Maybe that lives in the Philippines. And that allows you to really augment that. And with virtual teammate is we talk about where scalable staffing made simple because we want an ability for our clients to scale up and scale down as they need to really support their business.
Hmm. Yeah, we're definitely seeing that. So
Yeah, I
cool.
mean, I think there's huge opportunities today. We do a lot of cross-border stuff, and it provides huge opportunities from our labor arbitrage, but also from a productivity standpoint and a work ethic.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, Chris, thanks so much. Thanks so much for sharing. Thanks so much
You're
for taking
welcome.
the time. Um, it's been awesome. All the way from Australia, coming to the United States, finding these needs and filling the needs, and you've helped and connected a lot of people. It's very cool to see. Congratulations on your success.
Well, thank you. I'm still on the journey, right? I like to say, I'm just north of 52. I guess I'm on my 52-year overnight success, and my focus is really how I can continually add value to the world, and I want to be net positive, right? And because you could add $1 billion of value, but if you take out 1.5 billion, that's not productive. And so I'm really on a mission to be able to do that, and providing value not only to clients here in the US and in Philippines and Australia and Canada, but also providing value to teammates in the Philippines and Latin America so they can be providing for their family. There's such an amazing culture, and anything I can do to kind of give back in a small way is fantastic. And my goal is really to leave a legacy of success for my family and for others to kind of keep this going. So blessed to have the opportunity, and thankful for the opportunity for us to connect today, Brandon.
Awesome. Same, Chris. Thanks again for joining. This is the Valuable Mind podcast with Chris McShanag. So cool to have you on. Thanks again.
Thank you, Brandon. Appreciate it. Have a great day.
You too.